Alright, this is the tutorial in terms of how to use Fusion 360 and its basic modeling functions here. What we're using, you're going to need to have access to this drawing. If I can bring it over. We're going to be modeling this box lower that's going to be a kind of key project that we're going to keep coming back to in this class that we're going to use to also generate CAM tool paths for a Haas TM2P machining center later, but we'll need to have access to this drawing to carry on this whole thing. So anyway, here we are. I'm assuming that you've been able to open Fusion 360 okay. That'll be something else to cover in another video if you can't, but here we go. This is the basic interface here. Before we get going any further, there's this thing called the show data panel. So if your screen doesn't look like this right now, but it looks something more like this with a panel down the left side here, the way that you can get either show that or hide it. So hide data panel, if you click that button again, will hide that show data panel there, or you can hit this X button here to get out of that. We can talk more about that, but likely you aren't going to have any files or anything else currently generated, so but if you're seeing that, but maximize your space right now, make it look like this. So first things you're going to want to do otherwise right now as well, notice that units right now, likely yours are default set to millimeters. If you see this right here, similar to what I've got there, units mm, you're going to want to hover over this change active units icon, which is a little piece of paper with a pencil, kind of indicates edit. Click on that once, come down here, go from millimeters to inch. You may actually, mine is set to default inches normally, yours may not. You may want to click on that to try and set yours as default for the future. We're in America, we'll use inches for now, but we could fool around in millimeters and stuff later on other projects. But for now, click OK. Now we're in the correct units here. So just some environment things here to navigate around. It's helpful in Fusion 360. You've actually got this little cube to orient in space here. For some reason default, this is the z-axis, x-axis, y-axis. But if you want to rotate around views pretty quickly and easily, say we want to look top down on there, we can click on top. You can click any of these triangles to actually then orient to other orthogonal views, standard orthogonal views there. You could click on corners of this to do that, or you could click and drag around that box to actually orbit and do that sort of stuff here. So I'm just simply clicking on that, these front faces, kind of getting the idea. And then this home icon here gets you to an isometric view of this whole thing. So again, coming back to this actual box right here, we're going to figure out how we can do our actual first, set up our first extrusion features to actually make this part here. So here we go. All of our features and stuff are going to end up with, or start by creating a sketch. So right now I'm clicking on this icon, create sketch over here. I'm clicking on that. All right, with this option coming up, I'm going to want to work, you could select what it's asking you now for, similar to SolidWorks and other solid modeling software. In order to do a sketch, we need a single plane to work on. So I'm actually, for this one, going to select this plane kind of that's on the top face there. Alright, so now I've clicked on that, and it now has oriented to look normal down on top of that plane. So here we go. We're going to end up creating a rectangle shape. A very simple two-point rectangle is going to do what we want. And you could go from, say, place first corner, it's going to snap to the origin, which is nice. That's what I want right now. You can actually snap it anywhere. So now as we're doing this now, we're going to have dimensions here. And I'm looking at the drawing, and the outermost dimensions of this box is going to be 2.75 or 272 inches, 750 thousandths of an inch long, and this horizontal direction that way. So I could either, what I'm going to do right now is click once right now, specify size of rectangle. I'm clicking there. It's not exactly the size that I wanted. I just kind of clicked, and I wasn't too concerned with the actual size of that right now. So what I can do now is I can come back here, and under sketch I can click on this down thing down right here. I could then come down and go to sketch dimension. I could click on it there, or if you saw there was the letter D next to that, now I've got this icon here. I'm hitting the escape button to get out of that, but also by hitting the letter D on my keyboard, I'm going to get that same icon right now. Select Sketch Objects to Dimension. So now, what I'm going to do here is click on that vertical, click on that vertical line there, and I'm going to carry this dimension up here. That is at 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches, but I actually want that value to be 2.750, 2 inches, 750 thousandths long. Now hitting the enter button on my keyboard, that now is 2 inches, 750 thousandths long, right there. Then going to go D again on the keyboard for dimension. Click there, click there. Now have the height of that feature. That one is supposed to be off of my drawing. That would relate to this dimension right there, 1 inch 750 thousandths. So, typing in now here, 1 inch 750 inches. Enter. Ha! Very nice. That looks good to me. That's a rectangle now. The other thing that I can do to navigate around and orbit around, similar to doing this right here, clicking on that, just so if you want to see, holding down the shift key on my keyboard, my center mouse button gets me into orbit, so I can then orient around. You can see that this is a very flat thing right now, but now we're going to want to do the next step. So to do the next step, I could hit stop sketch right here, or stop sketch. Stop sketch right now. So now what I'm left with under sketches, if you come here and see it shows sketches here, and if you notice now that I've actually stopped sketching, this is I guess what they call the timeline down here. I also now have something that shows up here that wasn't there before, showing the sketch that I actually just made. If I click on that, there it is. If I click this down, there's sketch 1 that I just made right there as well. Cool. But now I've got something to actually do. So if I do extrude, adds depth to a closed sketch profile or planar face, hey, that sounds like that's going to do something that I want it to do right now. So I can click on this. Very cool. Now it's asking me profile, select. Guess what? I have a profile right here that I can select. I've now selected that. I'm holding down the shift key, center mouse button to orbit around here a little bit. You could right here actually click and drag this up or down to see that you're actually giving some depth now, or extruding that sketch, enclosed sketch plane out. That I just happened to drag down to -1 inch there. But guess what? On our drawing, we want to make that feature 0.750, 750 thousandths of an inch, or 3/4 of an inch deep. Here we go. -0.750. Enter. Hey, by hitting that enter key, it took that whole thing, and now I'm left with an actual extruded block.